CyberHub bunker and studio. You're tuning in to the CyberHub podcast. And now for your host and CISO, James Azar.
All right, folks, good morning. Happy Thursday. Wrapping up this week here with the Practitioner Brief. What a week this has been. We are live on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube. Thank you for all of those that are tuning in live right now. You can comment below, join the conversation. The Practitioner Brief is based on three critical things: risk, impact, mitigation. That's what I'm going to be talking about. It's not all theory. It's very, very practical. That's why I call it the Practitioner Brief. So we'll get right into that here in just a moment. We have a few stories to talk about today, including this new malware that is hijacking Kubernetes clusters to essentially mine Monero and can do much, much more. A SonicWall patch, a SolarWinds patch, a recent Sudo vulnerability that's now affecting more and more devices as more stuff becomes available, and also some news on Cisco. We talk about Cisco twice today, and I've got a theory to what's going on over at Cisco as well. So before we do that, though, thank you so much for tuning in. Please make sure to subscribe to our show. If this is your first time tuning in, welcome to the show. You can comment and subscribe at any period in time. I love to feature people on the show, so you can do that. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at KnowBe4 and Wistic. You can find the links to their great services and products in the show notes of today's podcast. Make sure to check them out and help support the organizations that support this show that you tune into daily. So let's get, before we do that though, my traditional coffee sip. I enjoy espressos. I do. I talk about it often, but today I want to talk about it just a little bit more. There's something special about an espresso. Very special about an espresso. It's the strongest part of the coffee. It's what makes a latte and a cappuccino a latte and a cappuccino, because the milk sure doesn't do it. It's the espresso. So join me for the traditional sip of coffee. So let's get right into what's happening today. Let's start with this new malware that's hijacking Kubernetes clusters and is mining Monero. This is from the thread post and Lindsay O'Connell, who brings the story that researchers now warn that the Hildegard malware is part of the most complicated attacks targeting the Kubernetes clusters. Researchers have discovered this last month, January of 2021. This is a attack by Team TNT, which is a large-scale cyber crime organization that is specifically targeting cloud environments. Here, they're going after a misconfigured Kubernetes in order to launch a crypto mining attack. But the campaign, which by all means is just one part of it, could lead to more threats down the line. The Kubernetes clusters, essentially, they hide behind several masks and processes within the Kubernetes in order to mine this stuff. And if you're not auditing it, then that could be something. As of right now, they've collected around $1,500. This is still in the reconnaissance and weaponization stage, so this is still early on. From a risk perspective, this has significant risk for an organization. Let's start with the fact that a lot of organizations in a multi-cloud environment rely on Kubernetes in order to be able to work across multiple cloud providers, including on-prem and native cloud and so forth. So the risk is extensive here from a financial perspective, from a reputational risk. But once these guys figure out how to do this and they mine it, don't be surprised if it escalates and becomes data theft and evolves into ransomware. That's how these threats typically go through. So you want to keep your eye on this. Some of the mitigation here is to really keep an eye on the configurations of your Kubernetes clusters and your and essentially the entire environment, constantly auditing the data that goes through there to ensure that if your cost increases excessively or even so slightly that you don't feel it, to audit it and make sure you do that. So this is significant, and it's we're going to see more of these threats continue to evolve as more and more organizations go into Kubernetes and multi-cloud environments, especially now. So let's move to another one. Earlier this week, we talked about the SonicWall patch with the SonicWall vulnerability. Now a patch has been released. This is from Security Week, so you guys can actually check it out there. All the stories are linked in the show notes, so you can check them out there or at our website at cyberhubpodcast.com. So this critical patch is now available, and you guys should be upgrading and essentially getting your SonicWall devices up to speed. This is the secure mobile access. It's a 0-day vulnerability. It's significant. We reported it earlier this week. A patch is already in place, so get it done. If you become a victim of this, kind of on your own. Let's talk about SolarWinds, because what would they be if it wasn't for SolarWinds, right? Like SolarWinds. So here's the thing. All eyes are on SolarWinds. Every single security researcher on planet Earth is combing through SolarWinds, finding more and more things. So now researchers coming out and saying, even with the patches they're releasing, there's still significant vulnerabilities within SolarWinds. The sophistication of the attack on SolarWinds should have been an open check for the organization to go through and comb through everything. Everything. SolarWinds was complex. It was sophisticated. It was patient. It had the hallmarks of a significant cyber espionage campaign. The least you needed to do at a SolarWinds perspective is go back and start auditing everything you've ever done and bringing in the right people to do that. And now the vulnerabilities that have been discovered and reported to SolarWinds by Martin Rachmanov, a security research manager over at Spider Labs, and they have a proof of concept exploit code already available. They didn't release the code, but analyzing a demo copy, Rachmanov noticed that it uses the Microsoft message queue technology and started to poke around. He noticed that the SolarWinds Orion collector services relies heavily on SMMQ with a large list of private queues available, all of them unauthenticated. And so this means that an unauthenticated user can send messages to the queues over TCP port 1801. And due to the insecure desterilization, an unprivileged user can execute arbitrary code remotely. SolarWinds addressed this issue with CVE 2021-25274 by adding a digital signature validation step when new messages arrive. However, if you haven't done that, then you're still vulnerable. There's been a second vulnerability that was discovered. Again, CVE 2021-25275. That was the credentials for the Orion backend database were insufficiently protected, and local users had unrestricted access to them. Again, SolarWinds has addressed that as well, but obviously there is more stuff that they haven't patched yet, and there's a long road ahead for SolarWinds, but this is something where you guys really got to find a way to work with your security researchers. That should be part of every incident response plan. Is if you experience a sophisticated attack, you want to work with the security research community. These guys are unbelievably great at what they do. Let them help you and get the right bodies in place to work with them. So a recent Sudo vulnerability does affect Apple and Cisco products. So we talked about this earlier this week as well. Tracked the CVE 2021-3156 and referred to as Baron Semedit. The issue is a heap-based buffer overflow that can be exploited by unprivileged users to gain root privileges on a vulnerable host. The vulnerability was patched in Sudo 1.9.5 P2. Researchers at Qualys who discovered the bug only tested it on several Linux distributions. However, now it seems to affect Apple, Mac OS Big Sur unpatched at the present. You can enable exploitation of the issue by syslinking Sudo to the Sudo edit and then triggering the heap overflow to escalate one's privileges to 1337 UID equals 0, according to the post on Twitter. Apple this week issued patches for more than 60 vulnerabilities in Mac Big Sur, Catalina, and Mojave, but none of these address the bug in Sudo. Cisco also revealed that it's currently investigating this, and it will update shortly with what they find. Finally, Cisco fixes the critical code execution bugs into SMB VPN routers. The bug, which had a severity rating of 9.8 out of 10, has now been taken care of, according to Cisco, for all the different wireless and VPN routers. The bug is available on Cisco's website and should be done. If you're an MSP and you're using these routers, please ensure that your small businesses get this done. These are this is stuff that's being taken advantage of in the market in open now. We know that this is being taken advantage of, and again, there's an aspect of this where one has to kind of look at what's going on with the security hardware and understand that the our adversaries are going to target our security hardware just like they target our software, and we have to be able to match that. So Cisco fixes the critical code execution bugs. Make sure those get patched. Those are predominantly in small businesses. So the small businesses typically don't have anyone in InfoSec. It's predominantly MSPs. So MSPs, let's get on this and make sure this is all said and done. Folks, that's it for our practitioner brief today. Thanks so much for tuning in and watching the show. That's it for today. We have a great tech corner tomorrow with James McQuiggan of KnowBe4. We're going to be debating awareness versus culture versus technology. A really powerful debate over what really matters. You can go and check that out. Also, launched today, just this morning, a brand new podcast called CISO Secrets that I launched with my friends over at Checkpoint. You should go and check it out, CISO Secrets. I'll be posting more about it today on our stories here at CyberHub Podcast on LinkedIn. So if you're not following us there, please make sure you do. Brian Lozado and myself kick off the inaugural episode of CISO Secrets, talking a lot about cloud security, hence Kubernetes that we spoke about today. Brian is a gem, one of probably the most knowledgeable CISOs out there. You'll definitely want to tune into that. CISO Secrets. There will be a small preview of that episode on the CISO Talk podcast as well, but the full episode can be found at CISO Secrets on your favorite podcast listening platform. Make sure to check that out as well. Until tomorrow, Tech Corner, right here on the CyberHub podcast. And Monday, we'll be back with more Practitioner Brief. Until then, folks, stay cyber safe.
We love feedback, so make sure to connect with us on social media and subscribe to our podcast on your favorite podcast listening platform.